Welcome back to Did You Have To, the podcast where two bad bitches talk about anime. And here are your hosts, Kate and Nisha. Yeah! Nisha's quirk, stress ball. By internalizing her stress about the world being in chaos and crime, she converts that stress into a superpower, becoming a badass. Kate's quirk, waifu warrior. By just watching her favorite shows, she can manifest real or fictional characters into the real thing. They come to life and fight by her side. Not every character does it, though. She has to find the individual really hot. Yeah!
Hey everyone, I'm Kate.
And I'm Nisha.
And today we are going to be going back to our roots and reviewing the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Is Unbreakable Chapter I live action movie from VIZ Media. And we're doing that with the help of a special guest, Cidnya.
Hi, my name's Cidnya, and I love JoJo, and I'm very excited to be here.
We are excited for you to be here because, again, I know very little about JoJo. Kate, you've binged more than I have, but I still don't know what's going on. True. So yeah, you are the JoJo expert.
Yeah, I've seen all the seasons, and I've read all of part 1. I've read a decent chunk of part 2. I have read most of part 4. I haven't touched part 3 because hardcovers are expensive, but I'm getting around to it.
That is one of the things. Mangas are an expensive hobby.
Yes, they are.
But yeah, so we're gonna do our segment before we get into a review today in Weeb. And I want to open it to Cidnya first since she's our guest. So what are you reading in the world of Weeb or watching? What's keeping you weeby?
Okay, so I actually am planning on reading Attack on Titan because I have a Kindle, and most of the series is available with my Kindle Unlimited subscription, and I've been really meaning to get back to it. It's just that the climate for giant monsters being holed up in a city has been a little wonky, but that's what I'm going to be reading soon. And I will be going back and rereading Tomy by Junji Ito because I just have an itch that I need to scratch. But I'm not watching any anime right now because I'm saving myself for our Sunday stream of JoJo Part 5.
That is a really hefty reading list, honestly. I can't... reading Attack on Titan scares me because I'm like... Oh, 1, this is a lot. 2, it's a lot in like 10 different ways, but being a lot.
A lot.
So I'm currently reading, I'm reviewing a whole bunch of stuff this month, so I've read all those, but the ones that I'm reading for fun are Happy Marriage from Maki and Joji. I had read the first 20 chapters of it, and then I had stopped, and it's one of my favorite joseis out there. It's like typical standard josei, like the girl was working, the guy is the president of a company, they meet, he tells her not to work there, and she becomes a secretary, boss employee stuff, rich guy, poor girl. But it's really fun, it's really warm. And then in anime, I watched all of season 2 of High Score Girl, and I really, really, really recommend High Score Girl. It's essentially a love letter to 90s arcades and to like the connections that you form in them. It's it's romancy while also giving like a really detailed history of fighting games. In the arcade world. The animation takes a little bit to get used to. It's a hybrid of using 2D and 3D, but it's really fun. If you're a gamer, you'll like it. If you just like cute things, you'll like it. But I think it really nails humor on the head too.
Nice.
What about you?
For me, so I've been reading a lot of Demon Slayer. just because that's a manga review I'll have out for the website soon, but also because I've been meaning to just like catch up and do a deep dive. So I figured, ooh, this is a perfect opportunity for me to like pick up where I left off. And I forget that in Demon Slayer, you should never get attached to anybody at all because death is everywhere. And I just read a chapter. I'm like, why did he die? Why did this have to happen? And I'm just kind of like frustrated at myself. I'm like, you knew this was going to happen. Like, I've been warned by people just not to get close to people, but I'm just like, damn it. So and it's just so good. Like, if y'all haven't, for people who haven't like watched Demon Slayer anime or like read the manga, I recommend both of them because like reading the manga made me go back and start over watching the anime. So just Demon Slayer is what I am recommending for today in Weeb.
I need to get on Demon Slayer like real bad. Real bad. I've actually keep getting people asking me if I'm gonna read it or watch it, and I'm kind of scared to fall into another rabbit hole, I guess.
Yep. I mean, I feel like that's a conversation. I mean, I don't know if it's worthy of being an episode, but maybe that's just a conversation we have to have one day about entertainment and like as an anime fan, and like we have to pick and choose our fandoms sometimes. Yeah. Like I don't have time to like invest in this. Like, for example, Final Fantasy. It sounds like it would be my jam, but you know what I haven't done? Played a single game since the demo that Pizza Hut gave me. And it's because like I was broke. I was a poor child. I couldn't buy a game.
I lived off of those demos from Pizza Hut.
Didn't we all? The Tony Hawk game, the only level you could play in the warehouse. The best soundtrack. But like anyway, it's just like I think it's a thing as anime fans that like we have to pick and choose like our shows and our fandoms to dive into because we know it's a slippery slope of getting sucked in. But hence why I'm not that invested in JoJo.
I watched the first episodes of lots of animes. Like, I've watched the first episode of Demon Slayer, and I was like, okay, neat. And then I've never watched, like, the rest of it at all, ever again. And I do that with a bunch of stuff. Yeah, it's intense. And a lot of it is, like, there's so much, what's the word? Anime universes are so expansive that it just, like, seems, like, scary sometimes.
Right.
To, like, get into it.
100%. Yeah. I mean, and I think like pivoting to our conversation on JoJo, that's how I felt with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Like, one, I was never a huge fan of the animation really, but it was knowing that JoJo has been going on for so freaking long.
Mm-hmm.
And
since the 80s.
And like really? Not understanding any of it. So like if you had to kind of explain JoJo, like I guess a JoJo's history or universe, how would you do that, Cidnya, as the JoJo queen?
Oh, okay. In its plainest form, JoJo is about a family, the namesake being the Joestars, having to deal with like supernatural evils that have plagued their bloodline, essentially.
Okay.
That's a good summary, because I would have never guessed that.
How many generations does it cover? Like, is the new is the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that is currently going on new and different from what happened in the, like, I remember there was like a really old anime?
Oh yeah, the OVAs. Yeah, those were like testing the waters, and I don't think they really picked up very well. Okay. And then David Productions got the rights to do an anime, and then it just really started to form. And with each season or each part, because like JoJo's divided into like part 1, part 2, part 3, it keeps gaining popularity, and it's finally like starting to take root. But it's like a giant thing in Japan, and it's only just getting popular by like part 3, and then around part 4 and part 5, it really became this very giant phenomenon here in like Western culture. And even then, JoJo is still one of those animes that's like everyone knows about it, but there are so many people that's just like, I haven't watched it yet, maybe I'll get around to it, I don't know, it seems weird, I don't know, I'm scared of it. So yeah, it's got a really interesting fandom.
I will say, because it even has its own TikTok now, right?
Oh, does it? I don't know.
No. So TikTok challenge thing, that JoJo pose thing.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
Because Araki is a giant fan of like Greek art and fashion. So a lot of characters, there will be splash pages of them doing poses that are reminiscent of like Vogue fashion covers or just, marble statues and stuff like that.
That's just a really cool dynamic to have in your anime and in manga.
Oh, yeah. It's so innovative and it's so different, and I think that's why it's so scary to people, because they don't know what to do with it, because it seems obnoxious at the same time as it is cool.
That's a really good explanation. I think you're right. I mean, I think that caught why it took me so long to watch it, because I think you're right. It was just like, I didn't know what to do with it.
Same. I mean, like, because you hear so many people, especially on Twitter, there's a lot of JoJo fans there. And I feel like people will always ask me, like, have you watched this? Have you watched JoJo? Do you know who this is? I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I thought JoJo was just one person. But apparently, like you said, like I had, like going into, I'm like, who's JoJo? Is it just one JoJo? Is like, I don't know this stuff. So it's like overwhelming to like approach it, because I feel like there's just like so much. So it's easier to just like put it off, and then eventually I'll watch it. But then when I did watch it, I'm like, okay, I'm interested. And I think halfway through the first season, and then I stopped. Not because it's bad. It's just like, I was just like, I don't know what else to watch, and I'm going to put this to the side now.
And I will say, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, part 1 is a lot to deal with.
Finger vampires.
I'm just trying to figure out. Yes, I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on with the vampire mask thing, and Dio was annoying.
Yeah, Dio's the worst.
Yeah.
I will say though, one of the reasons that I started watching JoJo was, one, because I knew we had to do this live action, because it's one of the most recent live actions, and it was accessible in the West because it was put out by the amazing VIZ Media, which, if you don't know, they pretty much do all of the main titles in English for us to consume. Main titles being the main anime titles, the current ones that are big. And because of also just watching Cidnya's love for it, honestly, like, your love for JoJo was like infectious, and I was like, for somebody to be this in love with a thing, I need to see what it's about.
That makes me so happy.
Right.
But this is where we go into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Diamond is Unbreakable, Chapter 1, which we will just talk about as JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, or that movie we watched from this point on, because that's a long-ass title.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to say JoJo.
JoJo. And this one is directed by a guy who we've now reviewed 2 other movies for, Takashi Miike.
Really?
Yeah, so the guy who...
Why am I not surprised?
Right? You can't be surprised. This is totally up his alley. If this is your first time listening, or you haven't listened to those episodes, the other movies that we've done on the podcast from him were Ace Attorney and Yakuza Rising, which was our should have been an anime movie.
Oh wait, Yakuza Apocalypse.
Oh, Yakuza Apocalypse? Okay, Yakuza Apocalypse. There we go. Also, fun fact, Takashi Miike also did Audition, which is one of the it is one of the centerpieces of J-horror, and is one of the reasons that J-horror came to the West in a lot of ways. It was one of my first J-horror movies. So Takashi Miike has a long history. The man has done something like, he does about, like, I think it's between 2 and 4 films a year since he started. So there's a lot of hit or misses. But so this is distributed by VIZ, like I said. It's written by Itaru Era, and it's based on the manga of the same name. And I don't know, I feel like I should just let Cidnya summarize what happens in the movie. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. So the film covers, I think it's the first 17, chapters or volumes of Diamond is Unbreakable, where we are introduced to the town of Morio, and we learn about Josuke and his family dynamic with his, I believe it's his grandpa who's a police officer as just weird stuff starts happening in the town. We learn that he has a stand ability, and it follows as more people are realized to have stand abilities as well, and a bunch of stuff is just happening around the town. And Jotaro and the friends that he makes are like, hey, just weird stuff is happening. What's this got to do with it? And you eventually come in contact with Keisho and Okuyasu, who have this arrow that is giving people stand abilities for their own personal, like gains. And it basically just follows that.
Cool. And can you describe a stand for the uninitiated?
Oh yes. Okay. So a person stand is essentially a symbolic entity of their fighting spirit or of their will. So for instance, Josuke, our protagonist, his stand is Crazy Diamond, and he has the ability to fix people because he's a very caring and nurturing person.
Oh.
That doesn't just extend to people, though. He can just fix broken things, except for himself.
I feel like that would be something I would have.
I can see this.
Fix everything else, but not me. So if you just kind of want to like just jump into talking about the movie overall, because I had very low expectations coming into it because I don't know how you adapt something that is so absurd and ridiculous and loud as the JoJo anime and the manga, and I thought it did pretty well. I don't know, I was kind of blown away by how good it was.
Yes.
I don't know if you all felt the same.
I mean, I watched... Oh, go ahead, Cidnya.
Oh, no, you can go. It's fine.
No, I was just going to say, like, again, I haven't watched a lot of JoJo, but I did go ahead and I watched, like, the first episode, like, for this character, for Josuke. And I felt like when we talk about, like, adaptation, I think we've said this enough times on this show, is that an adaptation does not mean a reflection of the actual thing. Like, if the adaptation takes the core things from the source material and then you make a new story from it, or if you follow the same story, I think that's an adaptation. But I feel like the thing that a lot of people give us crap for when we talk about, like, yeah, we review live action, like, there's never been a good live action. It's like, because y'all are so hell-bent on only looking at it as being a reflection of the anime and not looking at it as if it was a good adaptation. So I think I'm using that for me. I think this did a good job. I think that this accomplished that. But sorry, Cidnya, you talk now.
I'm not really sure what expectations I had for it, because I love Part 4 so much. And I love Josuke and Okuyasu and Koichi and Jotaro, that I don't know what I was expecting, but I was so pleasantly blown away about how, like, good it was. It really captured the balance between absurd and funny and serious and dark when it needed to, while still indulging in the of JoJo. Like, it never pretended that it wasn't JoJo, and I think that's what's so important, because like I said, and like Kate said, it's hard to envision a live action for JoJo, because it's colorful, it's bright, it's loud, it has so many like supernatural elements that I wasn't sure if CGI would be able to capture it. If it did, if it would be rendered well enough to like keep you in the movie and not just be like, oh, ew. But it did. I'm so happy that it you can tell that the director and the writers like love JoJo, and I think that's all that matters.
And I think that, like, because one of the things that we found in watching live actions and talking about them is really that the way it shakes out is the more grounded the anime, usually the better the live action is, because you're just adapting people. And I think really the only other anime that probably maybe would be on the same was the Gintama movie that we watched.
Yeah.
That might be the closest to it, but like even then, I think Gintama's even more absurd than JoJo.
Extremely.
But I don't know much about these characters. I haven't made it to part 4 yet. I was in part 3 and I thought part 3 was part 4. No, it wasn't. There's so many episodes. So many. And I know when we got introduced to Josuke, the first thing that hit my, like, that came to mind was like, oh my god, his costuming looks really good. Like, his hair, as weird and crazy as it was, it doesn't go in the bad wig pile. Like,
it does not.
It looked like it belonged on his head.
Yeah, all of the hairstyling for all of the characters, especially for like Keicho with his like K-pop boy like top with like the bang just swooping down over his eye and the long braid. And even like Jotaro with his hats and how his hair is like combed into his hat in a way that you can't tell where the hat is sitting, but you know it's attached to his head. Very well done. I was really worried about that because the hair in JoJo is as important as the costuming, and they seem to really try very hard to make it work and seem natural within the universe they were creating.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely love the character designs too with the hair, because I feel like we always like, okay, where's the terrible wig? Who's going to have locks? Like a locked wig. There's always a locked wig. But it's just like they looked great, and like for like we said, like JoJo's Bizarre Adventures characters, they are known to look, you know, much different from the background characters. But I like how it does it really good. They don't make it seem like it still seems grounded, but they do it in a way like I did really want him to still have his purple uniform though. But I love that Jotaro like hat he looked exactly like he does.
Mm-hmm. He even had his double belts.
Yeah. Oh, because one's not enough.
No.
And I think so as we kind of move through the movie, we look at the characters. I think overall my favorite was definitely, who was the K-pop guy?
Oh, Keicho.
Keicho is my favorite, mainly because his big flowy pants and his K-pop hair reminded me of Taemin, who is a part of the K-pop boy band SHINee, but has a amazing career just by himself. And if you know who Taemin is, if you don't know who it is, look up the picture of the live-action Keicho next to Taemin, and you will see what I'm talking about. I hope. If not, I just have Taemin on the brain. But I think one of the astonishing things for me was how it felt natural, even when you had these characters with really weird hair next, like in a house with completely normal people. Like there was that element of like all of the main characters, like Okuyasu, Keicho, Jotaro, and Josuke, like they're existing and they look different from everyone around them, but yet they're still existing in the world. And it was like a layer to what it was doing visually, because it's kind of like, oh, if there's a crazy ass looking person, everybody's gonna look at them funny, but everybody just like acted like they were normal people, which I don't know why that struck me as one of my favorite things about the movie. But I don't know. I don't know why that hit me the way it did.
It's just like anime, because that's what they do in anime. I think that's what I liked about it too. It's just like, for example, like Dragon Ball Z, very rarely do people comment like, that man can fly. It's just like everyone's okay with him being able to fly.
Yep.
Or like that dog can talk, and everyone's just like, nope, that's normal. This is completely normal for there to be a talking dog here who's anthropomorphic and everything. But I think that's why I enjoyed that too. It was refreshing for it to not like them to stick out, and for the other characters to just be, this is normal.
Yeah. So like when we look at some of the changes from the source material to the live action, Cidnya, as a fan of JoJo and as somebody who has read this arc, what was it like for you seeing it? Like how big were the differences so far from adaptation to source? Or those changes?
For the most part, there weren't super big changes, and I'm surprised they kept as much as they did in. The only real big difference the live action took is with its introduction of the next arc, which is the like small town murder mystery, because overall that is what Diamond is Unbreakable is about. It's so as you start to learn about stand users in the town, you also start to realize that like people are going, like girls are dying and are going missing, but that's not something that's explored until after you get your, you know, your central characters established and you like figure out like stand users in this part. So seeing the aspects of that, especially at the ending, where obviously they're trying to get people excited to see a sequel and then see a, you know, a live action. I'm going to name drop real quick. This isn't really a spoiler because like as you read the story, you know who the serial killer is. His name is like Yoshiki Kira. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just that the characters don't know him, but you are tuned into him and his life and all of that stuff. Yeah. Which is why it's not really a spoiler so much as a just like a nod as to what's ahead. Yeah, and it was really well done. I was really happy that they kept like Keicho's weird looking stand. I'm really happy that they involved Okuyasu and Keicho's dad the way that they did.
Yeah.
Because in the manga and in the anime, it's gross.
Yeah,
it's really confusing, and it's just like, Araki, why did you write that? Why did you draw that? And they kept it, and I was like, oh, okay, like they went there. Same thing with Angelo and the rock scene. I was like, oh, they didn't shy away from like what JoJo was, and I don't know, I'm just really happy by that.
That's really cool. And I think, I mean, I think the practical effects in this movie are really good, and I want to talk about that dad for a little bit because I did not know I was gonna be so just like disturbed.
Yep.
Because the makeup, like he looked like a toad monster that cried like a baby, and it was terrifying.
Yeah, and the sound. Yeah. Oh.
And
I wish. Oh, you go.
I was gonna say, like, it was just like a credit to like the makeup department on that set. Like, holy crap!
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really went for it, and they like. I mean, I showed you pictures in the Discord of what he's supposed to look like, and they really dedicated themselves. And like the actor who played the father really just did a great performance. I felt both mortified and also such empathy for him. More so, it was like it felt stronger in the live action than it did when I was reading the manga or even watching the anime, because in 2D you don't really get that same feeling for like a character when you like see them like as like flesh 3D. And I was just like, oh god, like it felt like worse seeing in live action, and I was like, man, maybe I do care about their dad because I didn't previously.
Wow. No, and I can see that because I guess maybe it's just like it's so different seeing it with real people on the screen than like when we read things or when like even when it's animated. Like I'm just sometimes numb to like, oh yeah, I think somebody just chopped off someone's head in that anime. I'm good. But then it's like then you see it as a live action and I'm like, nope, this is bad. I can't. Yeah. But I want to like, okay, I feel like we've also seen like whenever Takashi Miike does one of these movies, he sticks to it. I think like he doesn't. I think he does a really good job of like costuming and making like he's obviously not the one, but I think he makes an effort to make things come to life from the source material. Because even like with Ace Attorney, I just feel like based off of like the anime and the video game, because like I love both of them very dearly, and then when we watch the movie, it's just like he was able to build this entire world, and it feels like this is a great adaptation because he's stuck to just based off of what the anime does and then what the video game does. I think he's done that with like other things. Like what was the other movie you said he did, Kate?
I need to look him up. He also did, what was that one that you hate with the cockroach guys? Terraformers?
Oh yeah.
He did that
Terraformers. I feel like I really don't want to hate this man, so I can't hold him against it. It's not his fault that they drew him like that.
It's not his fault. It's
his fault.
Oh, actually, this is the 4th movie we've done for him. He did Blade of the Immortal.
Blade of the Immortal. That was the one I was thinking of.
Yakuza Apocalypse, Blade of the Immortal, Ace Attorney. Let's see. He did Dead or Alive Final. Oh, honey.
Is it also, I think, Ichi the Killer? Was that one?
He did. Were you talking about his non-anime ones? Yes. Yeah, no, he did Ichi the Killer, Audition. He recently did First Love, which just killed it on the festival circuit. I think it helps that this guy literally has these, like, critically acclaimed, almost art house films, and then anime nonsense, and then just nonsense. That I think
he's well-rounded.
He's a well-rounded man. I think it helps him because he's not afraid to go there. And I think because he's not afraid to go all the way, I think it's what lets him go at anime harder than like what we've seen with some of the American adaptations we've seen, or even some of the other Japanese adaptations like Full Metal Alchemist, which took out some of like the large, more crazier elements, or even Bleach, honestly.
True. I would agree, because I think, like, you're right. I think his experience and just like the different projects he's done is what allows him to not be afraid to, like, he just does it. Like, things feel grounded, but then it also feels like he really brings the anime and the source material to life the way he does it. We need to meet this man. We need to have him on the show. So that's my goal. That is one of my goals.
I got to hear when he introduced First Love at Fantastic Fest, he was just like, I promise you, there are no decapitations within the first 10 minutes of the film, and the film actually opens with the decapitation. It's funny. But I do think, when I think of something that's just kind of a little chaotic, extremely stylized, I do think of Takashi Miike. So I think that like having him paired with JoJo was just really good. And I think when we look at the way they chose to do the costuming, and like I close my eyes and I see those green sausage fingers that the dad had that look so real and were terrifying and I didn't like. But then I also think of the way that like the practical really worked well with the CG too, because I feel like we should talk about some of the stands and like the action sequences that are there, because those stands like are very visibly CG, but not in a bad way.
Right.
I thought they were handled really well. Like the colors, I mean, and Cidnya, you know more of it, but when I've seen stills from Part 4, the stands looked fairly similar to what was on the screen.
Yeah, I was very impressed, especially by 2 instances. So Josuke's stand, Crazy Diamond, is the same exact color scheme that you see in the anime. When I read the manga, I don't have the availability to read it in color. So I don't remember if the colors are accurate in the manga as well when it compares to the anime, because Tavered Productions takes a lot of stylized liberties with switching color schemes during action sequences and stuff like that. And the same thing when it came to Jotaro's stance, Star Platinum, because Jotaro has the ability to stop time. And so the fact that they introduced like those like freeze framing stills and everything was paused, and you can like see the CG like color aura coming off of Josuke as well as Jotaro, with like the little hints of Star Platinum before we're fully introduced to Star Platinum, is very well done. And even though it's obviously CG, I don't think that the way that they approached it could have been anything else other than what they did. Because I like, again, how do you put into a 3D live action show like these embodiments of like fighting energy like into your movie.
That was like what was it? Who stand? The Okuyasu stand looked really cool.
Mm.
Yeah, the hand thing was really, really interesting. And then I think my favorite stand that I saw, or my favorite that how they used it, is actually the one that probably uses the most CG, the water stand.
Oh yeah. I always forget the name of that stand.
Yeah,
like y'all keep talking. I'll look it up.
It's like this.
Okay.
It's the main or the first bad guys stand, and the scenes where it would go in people's bodies and make them drown from like the inside had no right to look that disturbing and good. And then there's Josuke puts him in a bottle, and you get a close up of the bottle, and when he shakes it, you can see water. Oh, like clear water, and then you just see like the top half of the stand, and it's very visibly CG, but it just looks really good. Like it's interesting and it's fun, and it doesn't need to be perfect because it just, I don't know, it stands out in like the best ways. Like it's just fun.
Yeah.
I noticed okay, no, you go.
No, I was just gonna say I found the name. It's Aqua Necklace.
Aqua Necklace. Okay.
Yeah, and just like the side-by-side comparison from the anime to the live action, Kate, you're right. It has no business looking that good and disturbing.
Right?
But it is so good and disturbing.
Yeah, and like I think that's like what's so fun about JoJo is that everything in it is so strange and obscure and outlandish that you can't help but stare.
Yeah.
But like in a good way. Like it's kind of like weirdly beautiful because it's like I noticed when they did the CG for Crazy Diamond and for Star Platinum that they tried very hard not to like show the faces of the stands. And I thought that was really well done because one, I think trying to animate their faces and trying to get them to look like the anime or the manga would just be very hard. The line work that Araki does is very, very different and stands apart from most other mangaka because he's instead of doing contours of people's faces with diagonal lines, it's usually like done on like the faces. So like a lot of the times there's a lot of vertical lines and like vertical shading that makes it like if you want to look at a picture of like the way that he draws faces, the contours of people's faces are like would be hard to emulate, I feel like. And it would be hard to grasp that in like the CG. So I'm glad that they chose not to show their faces because I think it really allowed them to put like the extra detailed. The textures of the CGI are also very well done. Like it doesn't feel flat. It feels very vibrant and alive. And I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, when I think about it, I think the other thing that I really liked about it, specifically on Aqua Necklace's design, was I think so. I looked up a picture in the anime, and he has like these eyes all over his body. In the movie, there are two eyeballs like shoulder pads, and I didn't notice them until the camera wanted me to notice them, and then it just looked real gross and real good. And I think he has the other ones, but I don't know. I really kind of want to go read JoJo now, just with how you were describing the way that he draws the faces and things. But then, like, I'm also scared because I'm like, oh, wow, is JoJo going to be that more disturbing and things?
Oh, JoJo does not shy away from, like, the grotesque and the grossness. It's kind of like a mirror to, like, Junji Ito's work where, like, he indulges in the just like the visceral and the under the skin type of disturbing, whereas Araki just draws things that are so visibly grotesque and gross, like not because it's scary but because it's just gross. And the manga really shoots all of that upwards, whereas like the anime does contain it a bit more. But I think a lot of that has to do with like television ratings and stuff like that. Like you wouldn't be able. And like when you do too intense fight sequences in anime, if the lighting is too bright, it gets dimmed and stuff like that. So
yeah, that makes
sense. But yeah, JoJo's insane. Like it definitely goes hard. Part 4 is probably the tamest of all the JoJos, so it's not like in part 1 where like you see the things Dio does to animals and you're like, oh, awful.
Yeah. That almost made me turn off the entire thing. Just saying.
Understandable. When I read the manga, I was so mad. Even though I watched the anime, I was like even more mad reading the manga. And I think that's something the movie captured well, is like it makes you love the characters you need to love and hate the characters you need to hate, because Araki does that well. He does character development very well. He knows how to make good protagonists and good enemies that are interesting, that are well thought out, that have range, and the movie did that very well for Keicho. Although I do think like the how they handled showing his reasoning for why he's doing what he's doing was a little on the weaker end. So I would assume they were just running out of time to shove everything they were in. Yeah. But it's a lot more fleshed out in the anime and the manga. But at least the movie tried to, do it,
Mm-hmm. So what was everybody's favorite part in the movie?
Can I go first?
Yeah, you can go first.
Okay, so my favorite part, I have two, because I think they're both very exciting. So when Josuke is in like the school courtyard, and all of a sudden you hear these like ticking noises, and then everything stops, and I'm like, oh my god, I know he's coming, because I know that that's like an aspect of Jotaro's stand. And then when we get to pan and see like Jotaro and his stand, and like his ridiculous hair like combed up on top of his hat with his two belts, and his like long white coat with like all of his costuming, I was like, oh my god, like that's awesome, because Jotaro is one of my favorite characters alongside Josuke. I was just so happy to see it. Like it brought so much joy to me. And then my other favorite part was actually like when the ending credits were rolling and we got to see like the nail clippings, the hand in the bag, and all of the very obvious ties to future sequel, hopefully, and like the connections to Yoshikage Kira, the main villain of part 4. I was like, wow, like they went in, and that was exciting to see.
Nisha?
Yes. So in true Nisha fashion, I love Jotaro now, and I have to continue watching because I need to find out where this tall broad man comes from. But I absolutely loved his and like him and Josuke's fight, like their first time meeting and that interaction, and like that, like with their stands and everything. I was just like, this is like so interesting. Like, ooh, there's drama and tension, and I like this. So I think that was my favorite part. It's just like, because I didn't know there was going to be like another JoJo, and like again, I know nothing about like the JoJo lineage. So then like finding out that Josuke's is the product of Jotaro's, I guess, grandfather. Having an affair. Yeah. Like, well, drama, I'm in. Drama and tall broad man, I'm in. But then also, I'm curious to see how I want to see more of their chemistry.
You get to experience
in the anime
so much of it in the anime and in the manga, and it's very fleshed out. Araki really loves Jotaro, so a lot of characters don't ever see overlap into other seasons or other parts, but Jotaro remains a constant for part 3 on for a while. And if you are interested in that tall, angry man, you should definitely keep on watching. I love that scene where the schoolgirls are talking about like bothering Josuke and like fixing his hair for him, and Jotaro just says, leave, like you're really pissing me off, because he's just a meanie head.
As soon as I'm like, I like this character, I will continue watching for this character. I am trash. So, Kate, what about you?
So I think that there were so many good action moments, and I think the fight between Okuyasu and Josuke is one of my favorites, but I think like my favorite small moment, and it's just because of how gross it looked. And actually the shot reminded me of Junji Ito. It is when Josuke is trying to save Okuyasu, who's getting shot by all of these shots from Keicho's stand, and he puts his hand out and it gets filled with holes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it looks disgusting and awful. And I'm just like, oh my god, whoa. And then that's also replicated on Okuyasu's face. And it's one of those moments where I was like, it was a super small detail of makeup being like, I'm sure that doesn't take long, but it was what kind of like really dialed me in. And this isn't the last act, but it was one of those things that really made me appreciate all of the small things that had been done throughout the entire film, from the costume and makeup department. And then you also just have the moment where you realize that, like, because Josuke is a dick when he first comes into the movie, and then at the end of the movie, he's just like, this really caring, I'm not gonna let you die man, and he chooses to heal Okuyasu, and I'm just like, this is so good. So that for me was probably my favorite moment from a makeup perspective, but also from like a character perspective, with Josuke literally saving the guy who was just trying to kill him and whose brother is still trying to kill him.
Yeah, he don't think, he feels.
Is there anything else, Nisha? Do you think we missed anything?
Let's see. No, I think that's kind of it. We kind of touched on like characters, the story design, the art. I am curious to think, like, has I guess again, you're the JoJo expert here. Has there been any news about a sequel coming out? Because I want to see it. I really want to see more of it after this.
So I actually looked into it after we watched the movie. Because I was like, oh, it's been 2 years, like, since the movie came out in Japan, and it just released here, you know, like, from VIZ through their Western platforms, so, like, people can buy it and people can, like, stream it. So I was like, are they testing the waters here in America to see the interest in it? Because, like, JoJo's Big in Part 5 just wrapped up, and, like, Part 5, the English dub, also just wrapped up. So I was very curious, because I was like, what happened? Like, why don't we know if there's another movie, especially when, like, they so clearly set it up. And then I saw that at the festival it released at, it won like the like People's Choice Award for that festival. And then when it released on the Japanese movie market, I think it was like number 5 its opening weekend, which is really good, you know, especially for something as strange and as peculiar as JoJo. I wouldn't, you know, even though it's big in Japan, I wasn't sure if like a live action movie would really hit the mainstream the way you would think it would. But then its second opening week, it went to 11, and it like the Wikipedia page just says it left like the rooms for a sequel, like in a very shaky spot.
Yeah.
And that's like all that we know about it. And it's really interesting, because the more I think about it and like talking about it, like, you guys are very well versed in anime, and especially like live action anime adaptations, that I wonder if it was, and like with it so closely attached to and so like in love with the source material, and it's evident that like they didn't shy away from like making it weird. I wonder if that was just really off-putting to a general audience, where they go in, they don't know these characters, they don't know like the history of JoJo. They don't understand the importance of Jotaro being there, you know? And maybe, I don't know if the sequel will happen, because I just don't know if JoJo is mainstream enough to garner that kind of attention. because even though the movie was very good and it was very well made, as a fan, I'm so pleased with it that I think it's hard for me to get into the shoes of like just a regular person and be like, oh, is that good for them?
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, I guess I did have this one question I wanted to ask y'all opinion about this. Because, again, I started JoJo from the beginning, like the very beginning with Jonathan Joestar. Is that him? Mm-hmm. Jonathan Joseph?
Yes.
Okay, I know this is I started with him, and I was kind of curious, like, why not start from the beginning? Is it just that Unbreakable Diamond or Diamond is Unbreakable? Is this the most popular one or well-received one by fans? Or I was just curious, why not start from the beginning of the JoJo family?
Yeah, I think that Josuke is like probably one of the most likable protagonists. A lot of them all kind of are either young adults or like teenagers, but Josuke and Okuyasu and Koichi are in an arc that is the most grounded.
Okay.
And is very confined. So it's very small town murder mystery overall. So adapting Diamond is Unbreakable is a lot easier than trying to adapt like Jotaro and his trek through Egypt to fight Dio, or even like part 5 with Giorno where they're in Italy fighting like mobsters every other week that are also stand users, and so I think they chose that just because, at the time, Diamond is Unbreakable was, starting to get a lot of really big, not criticism, like praise. People really liked it. People were starting to realize JoJo was starting to become like a household name. But I think at the time, like 2 years ago, I still think JoJo is still a little too underground, where its fan base is insane, it's rabid, they're intense, but outside of that bubble, people don't enter it,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think that definitely ties into what you were talking about previously about, how do you balance something that is this weird and crazy to appease a fan, and how do you also pull in a general audience? Because I also don't really know, and I feel like I've kind of hit this point with live actions where I don't know if I'm already in the like, oh, it's anime's crazy, make this live action really crazy. But it's also weird too, because I feel like whenever you're adapting something, you have to make the conscious choice of, I'm going to make this to get more people, but I'm going to actively possibly alienate the people who love the product to begin with. So balancing that and finding a balance is really interesting, and it doesn't sound like JoJo did just from the Wikipedia and the information around it. But I think knowing Cidnya, having you kind of break down that it kind of makes the most sense to start with this one, or to adapt this at least because of how grounded it is. It makes me think that at least maybe that was their attempt. Like maybe just the attempt of starting with this and not finger vampires was the attempt of making it more palatable.
For people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like JoJo is so strange. Like, because Araki as a mangaka, he's had JoJo collab with like Gucci. Like his art for JoJo had been in the Louvre. Like
what?
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
what?
I want to see this.
Oh, I looked it up. Holy shit.
It's a really JoJo remains in a anomaly, where it's like it's so big and at the same time it's not, and it's because it's like big with the people it resonates with or who love it and its absurdity, but to a general audience it's like, how do I explain this high fashion stylized, insane, weird, action-packed, but also intensely characterized thing to the masses.
Right.
Wow.
That was amazing.
I am shooketh.
Like how many manga artists can we say have had their art in the Louvre? Like that's
or like had a collab with Gucci. Like that, that's JoJo in the background of a Gucci store.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the Rohan and Jolene Abacchio and Bruno.
Wow.
He even did like a little manga like collab with Gucci alongside selling their like products. It's called Jolene Fly Hot, and Jolene is the protagonist of part 6, and she's Jotaro's daughter. Yeah, that's what I mean is like when especially when it comes to talking to this movie, it's so strange that a sequel hasn't been announced when like JoJo is obviously it's big, but it's just big with the people who like it. It's a weird sphere to exist in, and I always feel so I don't know it's not like sad. I always feel this like sense of like, you guys like people would love JoJo if they just tried. You know what I mean? Because there's so much to it.
Wow. I feel like that's a good place to end because I guess any final thoughts?
What else is there to say?
Yeah, I don't think I can top that. I think yeah, I'm looking through these pictures. Holy crap.
Right? Because it's like it's not uncommon collab with clothing now, like speaking of like Naruto collabing with Coach, but like I just feel like this is like on a different entire level completely, like this is a different level for JoJo's like up there,
and the Louvre,
it's the Louvre,
so fun.
Damn.
So fun. But it's also funny because it's like JoJo, I guess when we talk about like why didn't they start at part 1, why did they start at part 5, is because like the expression of style of more fashion, like less shonen type of body structures with your protagonists is so evident the most and clearly in part 4. It's like Josuke doesn't like, I mean, yeah, he's beefy, but he's not like Jonathan or Joseph. They're not big, brooding, tall men. Like they're just high schoolers, you know?
Yeah.
So,
right.
I don't know. Everyone should just watch JoJo.
Yeah. Cidnya, for everybody listening, I guess, where can they find you on the internet? You can cut that out.
You could follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at CidnyaReads. My name is spelled CIDNYA. And then reads, and that's it.
Awesome. And you can find Did You Have To at DYHT_pod on Twitter, and you can find me at OmenMithrandir on Twitter as well. Nisha?
And you can also find me on Twitter at LA_NEY_SHA. Oh, and as a reminder, we announced it in our previous episode, Manga Book Club. It is happening, and we will be reading Spy X Family. I'm saying the X because so y'all can look for it. But just another reminder. I feel like I'm going to keep reminding people until we have our anime-isode where we discuss the manga. So our first Manga Book Club episode will be coming up before you know it. So go ahead and check out Spy X Family. You can read it through VIZ Media or the Shonen Jump app. But yeah, with that, will you guys go watch JoJo after this?
Just watch it, I swear.
Kate and yes, okay, we have a JoJo fan telling y'all to go watch it, so go watch it. Will Kate and I become JoJo stans after this? And can I afford a JoJo Gucci dress? Find out next time on this.
No one can afford